जय हिंद दोस्तों, स्वागत है आपका एक बार फिर से द एक्सपीरियंस मैटर्स के नए एपिसोड में। आज के फास्ट पेस्ड एनवायरनमेंट में जब हम सोशल मीडिया से इतने जुड़े हुए हैं, कम्युनिकेशन एक बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले करता है। हम कैसे बात करते हैं, कैसे लिखते हैं, हमारे विचारों को कैसे प्रकट करते हैं, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। और ये ना केवल एक कॉर्पोरेट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट है, इवन व्हेन वी आर बिल्डिंग आवर ओन ब्रांड, हमारी ऑथेंटिसिटी को भी ये दर्शाता है। तो आज इसी ही टॉपिक के बारे में हम बात करने के लिए इनवाइट किया अपने पॉडकास्ट पर स्वाति अखौरी को, जिनको कॉर्पोरेट कम्युनिकेशन में तकरीबन 2 डिकेड से प्लस का एक्सपीरियंस है। तो ये स्वागत करते हैं स्वाति का। स्वाति, वेलकम टू आवर शो।
Thank you, Ravi. Thanks for inviting me to the Experience Matters show.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So Swati, as we already discussed regarding how the communication should be in this fast-paced environment wherein we have multiple sources of communication. Before that, before starting to our podcast, I wanted to understand, और मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप अपना थोड़ा सा एक जर्नी बताइए कि आप किस बैकग्राउंड से आते हैं, कैसे आप इस कॉर्पोरेट कम्युनिकेशन में आए हैं, क्यों इस कॉर्पोरेट कम्युनिकेशन में आए हैं, कहाँ से आपकी जर्नी शुरू हुई?
Sure, Ravi. तो मेरी जर्नी एक्चुअली शुरू हुई है 20 years back, if I may say so. And this was more because I was very intrigued by human nature, why we behave the way we behave, and what makes us move. We all have lived on various brands, like, when you go to the shop, you have a preference for a brand. So what is it about a brand that kicks you, and what is it about the brand that you really associate yourself and give preference to that brand over the other? And hence, the whole intrigue, the whole curiosity about understanding what helps in making it stick with the person, a brand stick with the person, is where, I think my whole thought for communication started, and I wanted to be in that world. And hence, first step was, I started by joining advertising agencies. I worked with few advertising stage agencies. I've done my specialization in advertising, and then I moved into advertising agencies where I learned a lot about how do we approach and how do we build a brand. And that was pretty interesting. And, working with creative guys, working with media, trying to look at your channels and everything. Now, with that experience that I gained, I felt it was important to also move to the next stage of which is more about corporate communication, being a part of a corporate where they have a very clear vision as to where they want to take their, where they want to take their brand.
Yeah.
And that's when my journey with corporate communication started. I've worked with various corporates when it was the big the IT boom that was happening. Right. I was working with an IT company. Then I worked with smart chip companies. I worked with BPOs. I worked with NGOs where we started the fundraising for the first time. So I've actually created companies, the communication function in various companies, and I've led that. Of course, then from Delhi I moved to Bangalore, and Bangalore I've got an opportunity to work with the big 4 of consulting and the big 4 of banking in the Australian market.
Right.
So that's how my journey started.
That's great. It's a huge experience. And before moving forward, my first questions to you is that, everybody's talking about communication, and once we talk about communication, the first impression comes to one's mind is that it should be in English. So would you please, would you mind sharing your thoughts on that and, breaking this myth of, the communication English mein hi hona chahiye, is type se? Can you please just put some light on that?
So for that, I'd like to go back, to what is communication. So it's basically originated from a Latin word called communicare, which is basically talking about bringing it to the public, where you making it more public, you are sharing information and making it more public. Now, when you talk about sharing and communicating and making sure what I'm saying, you are understanding, there is no language to communication. So frankly speaking, it's a myth. It can only be done in English. Communication is where I'm saying something and my message is being received in the same manner by you, right? Now that communication can be without words. So sometimes you don't need words to communicate what you are experiencing and what you want to share. But sometimes, yes, a lot of us communicate and regional language, various. But I think it's all about the setup that you are in. Now, when you're talking about a corporate, you have to see, especially in a multinational corporates, the common language that ties us is English, and hence I think hence the whole thing has come out as, English is the language. But if you look at our own government setups and you look at state level communication, etc., all that is happening in their regional language or in their, and the best form is communication is verbal communication. So if you look at that, that's the best when you are using the language that other understand, because if you don't understand English and I'm talking to you in English, there is no communication at all.
Correct.
So that's what I would say. I would say communication is all about making sure what I'm trying to say to you is reached. Use different languages. Use no language to talk about it. But that's how communication happens.
Thanks for clarifying that myth, Swati. Moving on, I just wanted to understand, that's my query. Why organization need of communication, or internally definitely, because you need to clarify your thoughts, your vision and your mission to your employees. But why it is very necessary for the organization? They are outreaching to the public. What is the requirement of the organization? Like, say for example, one organization, they are doing very well in their business and everything. They need not to communicate to the outer world. So what is the need?
So organizations will reach out to the general public, because one is, if you're a customer or a client of mine in any way, I'm trying to build that trust with you. I'm trying to also build that credibility. Also, as an organization, we have a responsibility towards our society, towards the community as such. So there are a lot of organizations. Like if you look at the bigger ones, like the Tatas and the others. Look at the kind of, what they're known for. Of course, the quality and the diverse products that they're bringing in. But more than that, I think it's also the philanthropic work that they're doing, So it's about caring about the society. So when you think of a Tata setup, that they care, the communities that they build, across, whether it's for their own employees or whether they are building for the general people. You can see that, and that's how the trust is built, because somewhere it starts sticking with you, that this is what the organization stands for, and it's important for me, because tomorrow when I launch something from Tata, those thoughts stays with me, and I come with that thought. I know they can't go, even if they're entering into a new area. For example, as soon as they entered into jewelry business, nobody questioned about the quality of jewelry, because their quality is something that has been established. Like that, I think the other thing is about trends. You want to change the trends in the market. For example, there is this detergent, I wouldn't take the name, but at that point of time there were a lot of discussion, and if you look at these detergent powders or soaps, etc., mostly it's women who in the house who's showcased in these ads, and then she's doing the cleaning of the clothes, etc. But there was one detergent which started saying, it is the men in the house who will find it easy to use, whether it's a powder and how to use it. And they started changing the narrative in the society.
Right.
So though men, even if they were working at home, they were not very comfortable talking about doing household work, because it was seen as a very woman thing, right? But the minute the ad started promoting it, and it started showing a man in a nice way, how a man support his own wife in the house when she's doing the household work, and doesn't shy away from washing clothes also in the house.
Right.
I think that has changed the whole narrative. Now there are many men who would proudly turn around and say, hey, I wash clothes, I wash utensils, I take care of my child. It's no longer just a woman thing. So I think it's also about changing narratives. It's also about being responsible, trying to bring the change in the society. So a lot of brands would like to connect to that, because they want a futuristic society for yourself. So
I think
that's another one.
If I would like to summarize this in a nutshell, is that the communication is required to build a brand of the organization and the authenticity, plus what the culture an organization is have.
Yeah,
so it will showcase so that the authenticity of that organization has been built in the general.
Yeah, I can give you another example. So when Apple launched Think Different, or It was not just about customers, where they wanted customers to think different, and hence Apple had obviously very, very innovative products coming in. But it was also showcasing the culture that they wanted within their own organization. So when you look internally, think different is for their own employees, that we as an organization, if we need to survive in this market, we need to think different. We need to keep innovating. We need to, so the messaging is not limited to the external world, but also showcases the culture that you're building within the organization. So it works both ways. And with social media, it's everything, anything and everything that you communicate, whether you're communicating internal or you're communicating external, everybody is reading it and everybody is making their own perceptions about the organization. So it's very important what you bring to the table, what you talk about.
Correct.
It's very, very important that you're a little bit more responsible when you're doing that.
So I think you already rightly spelled out. This is my next questions to you regarding, in this fast-paced environment, how, effective communication can be defined, because we have multiple sources of communication now. Starting from internally, for you have emails, you have plasma TVs and all, and then for externally you have multiple sources, social media,
yes.
LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and whatnot. So how these things are impacting your communication, and how these are helping also, and what are the challenges we are facing with these things?
So I think what we need to be aware and wary about is the communication fatigue that's coming in. As you mentioned, there are various sources, there are various channels, So it's not about how many channels can I use to reach out to my audience, whether it's internal or external, but it's more about making sure your communication reaches the right person in the right way, and they're able to grasp the right message. Hence, if you look at it, a lot of it is now moving towards, communication is moving towards written words, to more about storytelling.
Exactly.
You are moving into a space where it stays with the person, you want to, because stories are something we've all grown with, and these stories were told, whether it's in a sing-song way that somebody will communicate it to you, or generally tell you the story, or in an animated way they'll tell you, it stays with you. Those childhood stories which we've heard from various from our parents, from our grandparents, it still stays. We are still
Correct.
able to tell that story to our children, and hence storytelling surely sticks with us. So I think it's not about what channel you're using, and I think it's more about how and where and how much is being retained. So how beautifully are you curating your message that it is staying with the person, that your audience, and it's staying, the right message sticks with the person. So that's very important for us. Now, when you look at the channels, as I was telling you earlier, that earlier we used to have a concept of internal communication and external communication. I think that line somewhere is fading a little bit, because what's happening is, whatever is happening internally, everybody is putting it on their Instas, Facebook, any of these social medias that you look at, or even LinkedIn, so whatever is happening in the office, how I'm experiencing the organization, I'm pushing those pictures out there. Whether we don't have to wait for an official platform to actually announce something. Employees start doing that.
Exactly.
And people start building their so the communication is anyway happening through your number of people that's out there and from your organization. So you need to be careful how you balance. So make sure it's authentic, make sure it's consistent, make sure it's simple. Do not try and use heavy duty words, jargons. It doesn't connect with people.
Exactly.
You need to make sure it's connecting with people, and the only way to connect is keep it as simple as possible. So I would say use the channels in a responsible way, and keep your communication as simple as possible.
So with this, with this multiple channels available for the communication, how one can choose the right channel for the communication, be it LinkedIn, be it Facebook, whatever it would be? I
think you need to look at your audience. So depending on who you are trying to communicate, that's very important, because sometimes what works is, as I said, you can do a mix of channels when you're reaching out to a certain segment within your organization. Also, if you're looking at freshers and somebody who's just recently joined your organization, and you want them to understand your culture, your behavior within the organization, and also also how do our leaders work, and how does the organization work, what is something that we value within the organization. I think there you might want to do a mix of more face-to-face conversations than emails or through other channels that you're looking at. But when you are talking, when you're giving very generic information to audiences, then you can look at something that's not so engaging, be it your plasma TVs or your digital walls, etc., that you have within the system. But I think it has to be based around the audience, based on what is the audience, what connects with the audience is what you need to look at, and then have a good mix and a balance of more face-to-face and some of your digital communication mediums within the organization.
Sure. So when we are talking about this social media and all communication channels, what I feel is it is more of a one-way kind of communication, right? How organizations or anybody can embrace these channels to convert into a two-way communication, basically, between the employees or their general public, whatever it would
so
be.
I think that's where a lot of focus these days, if you look at it in the organization, especially internal communication, is where we ask for feedback, where we look at whatever we are communicating, whether it's something like a town hall that you're doing. At end of the day, we send out a mail or we ask people to come and share with us, and it's not just limited to corporate communication team asking for feedback, but I think it's a lot of our leaders also do that. They would walk around informally on the floor and they will check in with people to see how did they receive the messaging that was being given, whether it's big calls or whether it's town halls or any of these activities that you're doing, or even if it's a simple leadership message that's gone out to people. We do send out the surveys link, end of the day, and
I think that is my next question, basically.
So I think the chat, so that it remains a two-way process. It's no longer a single one-way communication. I've said it and you have to hear it, and that's where it ends. I think it is based on the feedback that we receive from our people on the ground, is what we try and inculcate and make sure that the next set, like if you're doing a next set of town hall, we have those feedback taken care of, and to the large extent we will make sure if there were certain concerns and issues or there were certain areas that they wanted to hear more on, we would bring that in, so that, because that's what we need to connect with our audience, and till we don't hear. And social media is a good way of doing it, because when we post something on our official page, there is a way that the audience tell us that we like listening more about this, we like what you're doing. So there is that connect that keeps happening. Yes, you do get some challenging feedback also, which you have to deal with, but yeah, there will be people who like some things and there will be people who don't like. So you have to kind of, as a comms person, you will have to think of how do you address that, because both are real issues.
Absolutely.
And you need to address both the issues.
Absolutely. So Swati, as you're the comms person, how do you measure the effectiveness of the communication which is gone out, whether it is internally or externally?
Okay, so I think it's very difficult to actually measure. Yes, there are a lot of tools now doing the rounds. We can, we have these tools in the back end that can check how many people are visiting your websites. You can check, how many people are spending time on reading an email, for example. If you send newsletters, if there are links, then you can also check, how many people have actually opened those links or the videos and things like that. So there are these tools that's giving you that kind of information, analytics, the LinkedIn analytics, and all those, that's there. That's a part of information that you can use to see how effective your channels are. But I think more than that is when you see a change when somebody turns around and say, oh, the culture within this organization is really good.
Sure.
Now that's where I feel proud, because that's where I know I've done my job, because certain things you can't measure, but you can see a change happening around in the organization. When you say, oh, this leader is really approachable, we find it very easy to connect with him. When he talks, we are able to understand. These are all communication for us, and these are areas that we support as comms people. So I think when you hear these things, these are feedback for me.
Right.
These are things that's working within the organization. Some might say, oh, this is not, they don't listen to us, we don't know what's happening, we've said it so many times. What is breaking it? So I think those are the feedback that we really, really try and capture on the ground. What are people talking? What is the pulse on the floor, And once you catch the pulse and that's the input, then you give it to your, to the leadership team, the management team, and then you start building and working and building your strategies around as to how to, address those.
Exactly. Thanks for Swati for that insightful information. One more question, which sometimes bothers me, is that many a times we observe that employees are overwhelmed with the information. It could be from internal communication. It could be from different departments in the same organization.
Right.
So how we ensure the effectiveness of the communication without overwhelming the employee with the information?
I think consistency has to be there. So even if you're getting that information from various sources, and yes, we can't bring that down. We try our best. But I think, especially in an Indian scenario, I would say that, there is an ask for more comms coming in. We don't do it. If you look at globally, if you look at it,
Right.
an email might do the work. But in India, because of the kind of, we also have very young crowd, very different segments. We have Gen X to Gen Y to Gen
Z,
Gen Zs, everybody working. It's a big mix, that we are seeing. So addressing to them, yes, there will be there might be different channels that we might have to use. There might be different forums that we might have to use to reach out to them. But I think one is consistent messaging that you need to do. So wherever they are hearing about certain topic, it has to be consistent. It can't be confusing my audience. So that needs to be taken care. And I think, as I said, as long as it's a simple, easy way of communicating, I think that's where it matters. And you need to tell your audience what's there in it for them, so that they're connected, they're associated to it. There is an engagement that's happening, otherwise if I send you some mails, and there is data that showcases that I think 28 to 30% of our time in a week, most of the people in an organization would spend in just reading emails, of which almost about 30 to 40% is not even relevant for them.
That's right.
So we need to make sure that, whatever is relevant and we want people to pay attention to is said in a way that it's engaging, that I can see what value, if I become a part of, say, certain initiative, what value does it bring to my career, my life? So we need to connect on those spaces with our audience. That's very important. Absolutely. So it doesn't matter which channel and how many times, but if it's the same message, the right way of communicating, and very clearly connecting with the audience, it's very important.
Sure. Regarding the recent, being the fast-paced environment and the way social media is booming, there are lots of misinformation, disinformation, spreading across the media. How we ensure that, how we first ensure that these are not been happening, because we cannot control some of the things, but how we ensure whatever the misinformation or disinformation is there out in the public, how the organization or an individual ensure that he should give its reply or some clarification or some myths or fact check, something like that, how it can be curtailed or it will be controlled.
See, fake news, for example, with AI coming in, there is so much of information, and you don't even know whether it's your own leader, because sometimes, AI can, it can just replicate,
that's
your leader message and things like that. So we need to be very, very conscious as an organization. I don't think there is any solution as such right now that we can really talk about. The only thing that we can talk about is be transparent. So as an organization, be transparent, keep communicating with your people, because see, if you are transparent, you're sharing what's happening within your own organization, whether good or bad news. If you're sharing with your own people, they are aware. Before they hear from somebody else, they're hearing from you, so that's very important. How timely are you communicating, especially some of the tough messages that you want to give out to people? That needs to be done on a timely basis. You can't delay those messages.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to highlight here, you must have seen there some videos of some big leader or some organization. I don't want to name that, you might be aware of. Its video is morphed basically. Some face has been changed and all those things, and then some communication has been done. how we can control those things? Definitely, we know that internally we know that it is not been communicated.
Yeah, that's because you know it because somebody has communicated about it within the organization. You know it because probably you heard about it in the organization before you even heard about it, or you saw those videos. So that's why I'm saying one is transparency, the one is timely communication with your people, and if there are times when you're taken unawares and there is something that's doing the round in the market, then it's good to go out and address it, because that's the best way to do it. There is no other way that you can you can take care of this. The best way to do it would be to go out and talk about the issue, if there was an issue or if there is no issue. Like, for example, if I look back in the 1980s, there was this whole Pepsi syringe controversy that happened, where they talked about, a lot of customers came out and then they said there was in the can of Pepsi cans they were finding syringes or needles and things like that, and that is bad communication. I mean, it just spoils the reputation of the organization. Absolutely, right? Absolutely. So and how did they communicate about it? The best way is they actually showcased how the whole packaging happens in their own organization, to build that credibility, to actually how the work is being done. So I think the best way to do it is come out and say how it is, and if you are authentic in your communication at that point of time, you will be, your customers will not sway away from you. Your people will not move away from you. They will trust you because you've built that over the years.
Exactly.
So you can go back and talk to them.
Actually, exactly. So one more thing which bothers is that, can you share some strategies or approaches for ensuring that clear and consistent communication across different level of organization? Because some information might be not needed at
certain levels.
Certain
yes,
level.
I agree. Yeah.
So how? Because if a communication going, we should be ensured that what level it is going to.
Yeah.
What are the
yes. So so for me, it's very important that we consider our employees not just passengers in the journey, but drivers of our strategy.
Exactly.
So when you are looking in an organization, when you are trying to drive your strategy, your goals or objectives, you need to consider each one of them of us is driving it. Actually, all your employees are driving it. So don't consider them to be passengers. When I say that, what I mean by that is, it's not just about sharing information. This is my strategy, this is my purpose, this is my goal, and this is what I'm going to do.
Correct.
As a leader, that's not communication. That's just telling them, this is what we have, this is what we put together, but who's going to help you deliver on those? These are the employees at different level.
Exactly.
Each one of them have their roles and they know what role they are playing. So when you're talking to say the associates or the first rank of your people, it's important that you tell them what are they expected to do. While when you are communicating to, say, the senior leadership within your organization, who has to oversee a lot of these points, and make sure that the strategy is being rolled out in the right way, the information is being given, I think they're a little bit more empowerment in terms of, share more on data around the various goals or objectives that you've set, so that they can share that information, percolate it in the right way within their own teams, within different sets, members of their own teams, whether it's managers, whether it's associates. So it's important that you look at your audience, you make sure your audience are segmented, and there is a tier that we are working around. It's not necessarily same kind of message will reach out or connect with everybody, or everybody will understand. So I think if you want them to be your drivers, you need to talk to them in a clear, concise way, and you need to share what's relevant for them, so that they can then understand and then they can do that. So don't give them big objectives to achieve and everybody is working towards that, because there is no goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make the goal smarter for me at every level, and then I'll be able to achieve it for you.
Sure. Swati, you must have seen the recent crisis which is happening around the world, and the ripple effect of those crises, in the different parts of the world, which slowly entering into our organizations as well, corporates as well. How communication helps, to reduce or reduce these kind of issues which is happening in I don't want to name some specific instance. You must be
there are
aware
a lot
of those
of
things.
Geopolitical challenges that we
something is happening
concerns,
in London, Israel, and that
Absolutely.
impact is seen in
Absolutely.
India and something.
And world is becoming smaller. There, as you said, when we started our conversation, we said the access to communication or access to information, let's put it this way, is there. Everybody has access to information.
Absolutely.
We can have our own personal opinions, but I think the guidelines within the organization that we put, because we don't want that touching us in terms of and becoming disruptive in an organization, because and hence you would see that we when a lot of organization would keep religion out of, we will not talk about religion, we will not talk about showcasing anything that will lead to
That's what I wanted
disruptions
to
within the organization.
Exactly.
Whether it's even if it's political news, we try and keep that out, because that's for your own personal consumption and for your own personal making your own perceptions or having your own views, and these are your personal views, these are not organizational views. So as an organization, I feel, and I think what we need to do is focus on what we do best, what we are here to deliver, and look at that. Yes, we need to be conscious of the surrounding around us, and hence there are certain laws in certain areas that we work around and guidelines that we build around ourselves, to help to ensure that we are in a safer zone and we are taking care of a lot of things at a very generic level, because you will have sanctions. You would have companies would say, I would not work with certain areas, certain countries and things like that. So all these are put in place just to make sure that it doesn't disrupt the work that's happening, and I think these guidelines are very important. These
why I ask this question is basically when such incidents are happening anywhere, any part of the world, then there are some gossips which is happening at the workplace. How this organization are, how organization is ensuring that what is going outside.
If it doesn't impact you in a big way in terms of immediate, if it doesn't, I'm sure at a senior leadership, again, there would be a lot of discussions in those rooms where they are discussing as to how it's impacting. But does it really need to be shared with everyone within the organization at a stage when we are sitting and thinking about it, but there's no action that needed, but you need to plan in advance. So that's maybe a job that happens in closed rooms. There are discussions, plans being made, but I don't think you need to bring it to people at that stage, because sometimes over communication can lead to a lot of anxiety.
Exactly.
When there is nothing happening and you're sharing a lot about it, it leads to a lot of anxiety. People start believing that it's happening around you. So then I would say, pause, do not communicate, because that's also a communication from your end, because you need to make sure people are not, because they're anyway getting to hear a lot about from other, unless it reaches a point where you have to start communicating. Like for example, when COVID happened, there was a need to communicate. There was a big need to say things are bad. When we walked into the COVID state and with the second this thing, almost everybody who was getting COVID was either, we were seeing families were losing somebody or the other.
Absolutely.
You had to address the big elephant. You couldn't turn around and say, no, we are not going to talk about it. Everything is okay. We have given you the support. No, you can't do that. You have to talk about it. You have to understand that people are suffering, that there is a lot of grief that people are going through. So people need to understand. And things changed for us at that point of time, whether it's the leadership style, whether it's the communication style, everything changed during COVID. So I think you need to take a call. How much do you want to communicate? Do you want to communicate at this stage, or do you want to postpone it to the next stage? So I think those calls needs to be taken to make sure that that there is no disruption in what's happening.
Right. So I think we come to some conclusion side of this podcast, Swati. Thanks for all the insights. But before we concluding this podcast, I wanted to ask two more questions. What is that? What trend do you see shaping the future of corporate communication in next 5 to 10 years? Being multiple channels are there now. How I put it, the way the people are communicating earlier and the way people are communicating today is totally changed, because earlier the communication is just, first of all, it was restricted to internal, number one. If something needs to go out, it is most majorly in the newspapers or magazines like that. But being the social media coming in, the people are more into social media, started putting their stuff, creating their pages and all those things. Now slowly the videos, short clips are started coming. So how do you see these trends, or where these trends are going on for the corporate communication?
I think I would say in the past the communication was in your hands. You were controlling it. You disseminated information and you created a brand. People started believing those stories. What you communicated was what people believed in. It's no longer true. As you said, there are enough and more channels that's there which is communicating, and I'm saying even employees don't take permissions from you to say, can I put this out? Because if there is an event happening in the organization, or if there is something that simple thing like an year-end award ceremony,
there are counters also.
People
if
will
I'm
talk
putting
about it.
I got an award, and suddenly one person put something on the comment section that you are receiving because of this reason. I am not receiving all those stuff.
You need to be. So that's, I think each employee has become very, very good at communication, which is great to see.
Great also, and
great.
the negative aspects
they know
also.
how to manage it also. Okay. So if there are some comments that's not good, they know how to handle that also without really, without really impacting the reputation of the brand that they are representing, so to say. But I think where we are headed, and what's really exciting and I'm looking forward to, is the whole AI gambit that we have with the OpenAI and the chat GPT coming into play. Life has become so easy, and I see more and more communicators actually using this to their benefit, because when you look at chat GPT today, you can just go and put a speech there and you can say, I need a speech around this topic, and depending on your inputs you would get a ready-made
this
speech.
This is my last question.
Now that yes, you can see it, that does your job go away? Not really, because what I bring in is more the human touch to that piece. I might get the structure from the chat GPT, but I still know my leader, or if whoever my audience that I'm writing for, and that's where the human part still remains, because as I said, communication is all about connecting. Communication is all about engaging with people. So just a simple speech would not help. How do I make it more engaging? How do I bring in the pulse that I see and I hear on the floor? How do I bring that in that is something still I can still hold it, right? So I think that the other area is, of course, presentations are being built in no time. You can actually use this technology to your benefit. It helps you do much more because you're doing things much faster. So I see those, and of course videos are here to stay, because people I think when you see more and than words, I think that stays with you when you're actually seeing. So visually, all of us, I think, consume more of visual information than just written words. So I think that stays. So I think your video blogs, your videos, etc. Those are the things that's here
video
to stay.
Blogs, your podcast, all those things.
These are things that are here to stay.
Thank you. I think you already answered my last question, was that how your AI, chat GPT are impacting the communication. Reason being, everybody is using these tools, and the language which comes out from this system is totally you can make out. If four people are, if I requested an answer of one question from 4 different people, but when I'm getting the answer is more or less same. There's no change. Language is same, style is, and everything is same. So that was my questions. I think you already answered.
We all need to keep learning, and we can't be scared of the new things that's happening around us. Yes, it will change few things around us. I'm not saying it's going to be the same thing. Maybe if your team size is today at 10, providing that support, it might come down to 8. But the point is that, are we becoming much more, responsible? Do we have more time to do things more strategic and bringing in the human element in that? I think it gives us space for that. So I am not scared of it. In fact, I'm really looking forward to these new technologies.
I think these tools are helping you, as you mentioned, that de-stress your job also.
does. It sometimes, you know, you have a creative block and you're like, you want to write something, you have something to deliver, and you are stuck because you're not getting any ideas. You don't know how to start because you need a little hook to write, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes just putting it on ChatGPT and saying, what do I do? And here it is, you know, based on your input, and it will give you a very simple,
step-by-step process kind of thing.
But it's if I look at it, it's a very bland thing that will come to you, very academic that will come to you, which doesn't connect, you know, but the points are there. So you can pick those points,
and
you can start building, you know. So it sometimes helps you think. So it's a platform there you can go and give your ideas or take ideas and then build your own thing. So I think you can play around with this. It's not threatening us.
I think that human touch is also required.
Absolutely. I think that doesn't go anywhere.
Whatever comes, whether it's ChatGPT or AI, that human touch is required to connect with the people.
Especially in communications.
Absolutely.
It's all about, because, you know, when you say he's a good orator and he's a good or a leader is able to connect, it's all about communication. How he or she has communicated? Because sometimes it's body language, sometimes it's the words that I've said, sometimes the anecdotes that I bring to the table.
Absolutely.
I think these are the things that connect with me, you know, because all of us can talk, say, about, say, leadership, as if I take as a topic. All of us can talk about it. There's so much that we have learned and we can talk. But when it becomes life for me, it becomes actually, it's something that I want to aspire and become as a leader, is when this leader tells me his journey, right? And that's the difference between an AI doing the job and the person doing the job.
Because
I think that's
unless they share their live experiences to the people, the people cannot be able to connect, because we are all a human. We are common people. There's no special Superman.
You would know when an AI has written something for you and when a comms person writes something for you, the difference is very vast.
Absolutely.
So you can always see the difference and see the impact.
Yeah, thank you, Swati. Thank you very much for sparing your valuable time. I think this podcast which we just did is that it will help people to understand that, you know, ChatGPT will help you enhance your work, and that human touch is definitely required. One needs to put in their work. Thank you for your all the insights which you shared.
Thank you.
I think the people would like this podcast and gain some insight from it.
Thank you so much, Ravi, for this opportunity. Thank you so much.